Hey hunting family, you are tuning into the Tracks and Tackle podcast, brought to you by Menser Outdoors.
Hey there, hunting family. Welcome back to Tracks and Tackle, and today's episode is going to be one for the books. I'm joined by my co-host, Brady, the Hollywood Horse, as we sit down with our guest, Perry Hartman, better known as Old Snakebite. And he's here to share an incredible story about his near-deadly encounter with a timber rattlesnake. Today, also joining him is our good friend, Justin Barrick from Interstate Garage Doors, who's becoming a regular member of the show. We're going to be deep diving into this experience, and we're going to be looking at what it can teach us about life and the outdoors. Can't wait for you to hear Perry's story. Buckle up, let's roll.
Hey there, hunting family. It's time to give a shout out to a company that's been keeping our communities moving since 1995. I'm talking about Interstate Garage Doors. For nearly 3 decades, Interstate Garage Doors has been the go-to choice for comprehensive garage door services in South Central PA, as well as the surrounding Hagerstown, Maryland, and Martinsburg, West Virginia areas. And get this, they're not just any company. They're veteran-owned and family-operated, with a proud history of serving both residential and commercial clients. Their professional technicians are the real deal, offering top-notch installations from industry-leading manufacturers and expert repairs for all garage door makes and models. From residential garage doors to overhead doors and openers, Interstate Garage Doors does it all. So whether you're a hardworking contractor building homes or a homeowner looking for service or just needing an upgrade, you can trust Interstate Garage Doors to get the job done right. And hey, they're not just experts in garage doors, they're also experts in giving back to the community, sponsoring podcasts like Tracks and Tackle. Are you ready to experience the Interstate difference for yourself? If so, here's a little something extra for our loyal podcast listeners. Use promo code Tracks and Tackle when you contact Interstate so they know you heard about them here. Just visit igdoors.com today to get an estimate or request service, or give them a call at 717-263-3150. Don't wait. Take the first step towards a smoother, more secure garage today.
Hey hunting family, welcome back to Tracks and Tackle. This is the Arrow Eagle. I got a full house today with us. We got a pretty good show here. I got my co-host Brady, the Hollywood Horse, with me. How you doing, Brady?
Doing good, man. Just feeling better. We're getting over our cabin allergies, but yes, we're excited to have Perry in here with us, and Justin, and just a full house, as you said. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so we got Perry Hartman. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Right.
But affectionately goes by Old Snakebite, and he's got a story to tell us about the interaction with a timber rattler here in Pennsylvania, and we really have been looking forward to having you come on the show. And coming along was our mutual friend, Justin Barrick with Interstate Garage Doors, and you're pretty regular now on the show, now? All right, well, Justin has actually connected us with Perry, and Perry's got a story that I don't think he would want any of us to go through. He didn't want to have to go through really himself, but had a really traumatic event, I guess, is the way I would explain it. Doing some solo backpacking in the north central Pennsylvania mountains, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Perry, I just want to welcome you to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks. Good.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, your background, and just help us get acquainted with this.
Okay.
We start the show off saying and ending usually welcoming our hunting family, and anybody that comes onto the show becomes part of that extended hunting family. So welcome to the family.
Thanks. Yeah, I grew up in Lebanon County. Grew up, had a love of the outdoors. didn't do a lot of, I didn't grow up in a hunting family,
Right.
but did a lot of hiking and outdoor stuff as a kid. And then married into a hunting family, went to college at East Stroudsburg, met my wife, married into a hunting family, and they had like 100 acres up in just outside of Mount Pocono. And that's where I got into hunting. And then the best man at my wedding, best friend from college, the second year got me into archery. And once I got into archery, that just like took off.
That's it. Once you get what we say, you get bit by the bug.
By the bug.
Yeah.
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 So let me ask you this, and this will get a conversation going a little bit, but, we always talk about, we grew up hunting, had a mentor in the family. It's kind of in our blood and our DNA and stuff. And we're really advocates of getting other people into the sport. You don't want to see it become a dying sport or anything like that. But from your perspective, getting into it later in life, I know you said you married into it, but like, what did that journey look like for you? Because a lot of guys they won't take that first step because they don't have, you don't know what you don't know is what I say.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know if I could pull a trigger on an animal.
Right.
And it's just never growing up around it. So, the father-in-law, over the years, he'd invite us over there for holidays, and it was only, 20-minute drive from East Stroudsburg. So we would go up on the holidays, 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, and, every year he would say, hey, bunch of, family, males in the family, they all go up here for hunting. Why don't you get your license? We'll do some shooting up here and we'll get you into it.
Yeah.
So it took a couple of years, and I thought, you know what? It'll be a good bonding, experience with
let's hang out.
father-in-law. So that's what I did. I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if it'll interest me, but it's something we can do together. And then the first, we went up in the summer and build a permanent tree stand, and this is going to be your stand. And we go out on opening morning, and the deer just start coming out. And I try to shoot a buck and miss, and I was hooked. Like the adrenaline was going, and I was hooked after that.
It's like you go from 0 to 60, you're sitting around, everything's peaceful.
Yeah.
And, then when the action happens, it's on your lap before you're ready sometimes.
Yep.
I like that verbiage, the tried. You should just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So next time I come up empty-handed, I'm just going to say I tried to shoot this and this and that.
That's good. Justin, how are you doing, man?
Doing good, man.
Welcome back to the program. Appreciate you connecting us, fellow outdoorsmen, and what's going on? What's new in your world?
Getting ready for early to start hunting marathon. And then we leave Tuesday for the boat festival, the PA Boat Festival up in Fort Flip.
Awesome.
So that's our family
That'll be a
trip
good time.
every year. Yeah, and our kids, usually about a month after Forksville, they start asking how long till
Right.
Forksville. So it's there. We go to the beach most years and stuff, but the mountains, cabin, we stay in a rustic cabin. Well, you were up there tenting.
Yeah.
Did you guys drive through?
Yeah.
Like
I saw where the camps were.
I mean, it's just awesome up there. It was a little better before phone service crept in. There didn't used to be phone service up there.
There's not when I went camping, there wasn't any phone service.
See, we started picking it up at the cabins there last year, which that kind of cuts your, hey, sorry, we're not service, so you're not going to be able to reach me deal.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. But no, we really look forward to that. Enjoy shooting. I mean, the boat festival is nice. The kids are starting to shoot. So that adds a kind of a layer onto it. But just the time away, campfire, it's a good week. And then, of course, Maryland started this past Friday. So just sort of might actually hunt Tuesday morning before coming home, getting ready to go to
Yeah, whenever you have that time fitted in. I remember the last time you were here, you were getting on us a little bit in a good way, but we were getting antsy, starting to get excited for bow season. You know, the young buck and the old buck. You're just saying like, don't get too excited yet. But now it's here, and now it's time to get fired up and get out in the woods a little bit more.
That's right. You guys have a few weeks left. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't hunt Maryland long.
No, we don't. So we wait until the end of the month.
4 weeks. 4 weeks left.
That's 4 weeks to get as much of the honeydew list done as possible.
Yep.
Take care of all the chores that need to be done at home.
Best of luck.
We closed the swimming pool as of probably 3 hours ago. You know, getting that out of the way. I always wait until it turns too cold, but you don't want to close it too early, and then yeah. So take care of everything. But that's the way September is usually. You know, the way we roll. So, can you do me one favor? I just double check and make sure we're recording, because we've done this before, Perry, where we've talked for 3 hours and cameras aren't rolling. You know, and so mostly the audio is great for, you know, people that are listening via audio, but for anybody that wants to watch, you know, we start to talk and I'm setting things up. I'm doing more than one thing at a time, and I want to make sure that we're actually recording. So we're good to go. All right, well, let's set the scene for the story that you're going to tell us here, Perry. So Justin reached out, said, "Hey, I got this great guy I know who thinks that he's got a story that he would be willing to share. Come on to the podcast and talk through." And it's kind of an inspirational tale, very serious topic, and you know, so we wanted just to make sure that for anybody that's listening, you know, that there's a takeaway from this. You know, Perry, you said you growing up outdoors, you did outdoor stuff like hiking and backpacking and that sort of thing. You know, it was actually just the hunting part of things that you got into later in life. Right. So why don't you set the story and sort of, we'll just get into it here. But you were out doing a solo backpack, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll turn it over to you and tell us the tale.
I'll back up a little bit. The week prior, I have a buddy that lives out in southern Clarion County.
All right.
And he's got a farm. So the plan was drive out to Benazet, which is about 90 minutes from where he lives, and go in. The original plan was to go in for 3 days, like backpacking a day and a half, and then come back out and look for elk.
Yeah.
I had never seen elk in the wild.
Yeah, for those that are listening that aren't familiar with the Pennsylvania, Benazet is where the elk are, and the elk herd in Pennsylvania. That's where you're going to find them.
Right.
So that's where your target area was.
Yep. So I have a friend that works for the Game Commission. He gave me an idea, where to go in.
Right.
And so the plan was to leave on a Sunday from my mom's house, because I was visiting my mom for the weekend, drive out to Benazet, do the 3-day backpacking, and then go on to my buddy's farm. And, in the summer we do move tree stands and cut shooting lanes and all that. So that night, Saturday night, I go to bed, and probably 3 a.m, she wakes me up and she says, "Perry, you can't do this." And she's hysterical. Like, she's crying. She's hysterical. I've never seen her like this. And, every son, "Oh, Mom, it'll be fine." My buddies know where I'm going. They know if I don't check in with them on the 3rd afternoon, they're going to come look for me. What could possibly happen? So obviously not thinking, you're going to get bit by a rattlesnake. You're going to have a couple hours to get out. And if you don't, you're in trouble. So, I kind of calmed her down. I laid in bed for about an hour thinking about it, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, she'll be a wreck for 3 days, until she hears from me. So I said, okay, I can't do this. So that morning I woke up and I said, I'm headed back home, and instead of going to Benazet, I'll go home, get some stuff done at home, and then drive out to my buddy's farm on Tuesday. which was the original plan. So that's what I did. But in the meantime, I had all my gear with me. I just kept it in the car.
Right.
And I thought, well, we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll do something on the way home. So I go out there, we do a lot of work out at the farm, move some stands, cut some shooting lanes, do a little coyote hunting. And then I leave there Wednesday. Wednesday.
Your buddy's farm.
I leave the buddy's farm, and I head to Benazet. And I figure I hadn't done any backpacking all summer. I'm like, I'm just going to do a quick overnighter.
Sure.
I tell my buddies. Obviously, I don't tell my mom.
Yep.
And, I hike in on the elk trail. And, it only took me, I only went a little over 2 miles. So I set up camp on a state forest side of a closed state forest road. And on the right side is a big Game Commission food plot. So, and there's a big game trail that comes right in front of my tent. So I'm like, this is perfect.
Right.
Tonight, after I eat dinner, I'll go out and tuck myself in the food plot somewhere in the trees, and watch the elk come out and feed. So, on the hike in before I set up camp, I'm looking for water sources because I never carry water with me, only what I'm going to need on the hike in, and then I have a filter. So, and I know this area is thick with rattlesnakes. So I'm looking, as I'm walking, I'm scanning, keeping my eyes open. There was a water source maybe 1/10 of a mile from where I set up camp. So I walked back, and I'm walking down to this little trickle of water, and I'm looking, scanning back and forth, and I get to the water source, and I think, looking back on it now, I think I just let my guard down because I wasn't moving. And the other part of it was I had done this like a couple years previous, and I had run into a dark color phase timber rattler, and I didn't realize there is a yellow color phase that's more camouflaged. The dark color phase, it was in the vegetation, it just stuck out.
Right.
In fact, when I first saw it, I thought it was the cow pattern because that's what it looked like. It was coiled, and then I realized, wait a minute, I'm like 4 miles up in the mountains, like there's no cows around here.
Sure.
And I realized it's a rattlesnake. So this time I'm looking for something dark, like dark gray, almost black colored and not camouflaged. And so when I had a water bladder with me, and when I was going to bend down and try to scoop the water up, and then I thought it'll be better if I just step over and let it run into the bag. So I step over the water, and as soon as my leg hits the ground, I see the snake head just coming straight up at my shin. And, it's like they say, it happened so quick before I even knew what happened. I must have jumped back. Luckily, the snake recoiled. Because I said, if that thing had been hanging on, I didn't like snakes before this happened.
Yeah, neither.
I said, if this thing would have been hanging on my leg, I probably would have taken my pistol out and blown my leg off trying to get this thing off my leg.
Right, yeah.
So luckily, it just recoiled, and the whole thing was, it was God. I mean, it literally within seconds, I'm running through my head, okay, this is bad. And I got to get to help either before my leg stops working or I pass out. And that's it. And so literally within 5 seconds, I was moving. I was headed out, and I knew I had read in somewhere, I can't tell you where, but somewhere along the line, I had read what to do, in case of a venomous snake bite. And, obviously the main thing is stay calm.
Yeah, you don't want your heart to start pumping that through your system.
So I knew I had to walk like half speed, but I had to get the help,
Quickly.
before I either, couldn't move or just totally passed out. So that's what I did. And, everybody asked me, did it hurt? Did it hurt? And I'm like, it felt like two hypodermic needles stuck in your leg. So initially it was that quick shock of, yeah, I've been bitten. But then it takes a while for the venom, you start feeling the effects. And the first thing I felt was my fingers, my toes, and my lips started tingling. And, I'm like, okay, here it comes.
Yeah. Starting to get serious.
Yeah.
And then I'd imagine like some level of panic, like trying to keep your heart rate down.
Well, that's what I kept, the good Lord was talking to me through the whole thing. Cause I'm like, thinking back on it now, I'm like, I don't know how I did it. How do you stay calm and just stay rational and just know what you have to do? And I swear it was the good Lord every step of the way telling me what to do. Like, I didn't worry about my gear. Luckily I had my GPS on me, so I knew exactly how far I was from the trailhead.
Okay.
And my thought was, get to my car at the trailhead, and I knew the Benzette Hotel was within 2 or 3/10 of a mile. And I figured if I can get there, I can get to the hotel and get a landline and somebody, call 911. But the whole time, while I was walking, the only thing that kept me going was I said, I can't let my family find me dead on the trail. Like, that just kept running through my mind. And because my buddies, once I didn't check in, my buddies would come looking for me. So I knew somebody would find me, but hoping it's not my family, but, it might be your family. So that's the only thing that kept me going, was thoughts of my family.
You said you were 2 miles in on the trail?
I was 2.1 miles, 2.2 miles from where I camped, 2.1 miles from where I was walking.
Wow.
So, and because I've heard the story, and it's been a while, but you had, well, first of all, like when you stepped across the stream, there was like the detail about that always kind of sticks with me. You said about the yellow color phase, that the sun was hitting that specific
I think
spot,
the
right?
sun was at my back, so I think it was sunning itself like on the bank.
Sure.
And I just startled it, and that, it was a defensive mechanism to,
And it didn't rattle.
never
Or
rattle.
nothing. Like
Never
you,
rattled.
You were standing there, and
Didn't
after the yellow
didn't rattle
phase.
before and didn't rattle after. And the other black color phase timber rattler that I had seen, I had my hiking staff with me, and I wondered, because I had heard timber rattlers are notorious for not rattling. So I thought, and it struck me as odd that, I was probably 30 feet from it when I saw it.
Right.
And it saw me, but it didn't rattle. So I kind of walked my 5-foot hiking staff up, and it got within like a foot of it before it rattled.
Yeah, it's almost, I've encountered timber rattlers, locally here. And we've hiked right past them. And if they're sunning themselves and you're leaving them alone, like for the most part, that's what they're going to do. Like they're not going to give off their location.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know how many times you walk past them and then you don't know they're there.
Well, that's what I always think. I think, how many times did I walk right by one and never knew it?
Right.
I'm sure on the way out, you probably weren't worried about like scanning everywhere. Your mind.
No, I was just
worried on booking it out of there.
My thought was just go at half speed, just keep moving, try not to stop. You've got to get out as quick as you can without getting the heart rate and the breathing out of hand.
Yeah.
Hyperventilating. And
so there's almost like three phases to this story, right? You got the setup, where you set the table, like leading up to the actual hike, you going in, and then the hike.
Yep.
Right. So the incident happens. You're bit by this rattlesnake, and you said it got you in your shin, like below the knee area,
Yeah,
right?
It was 13 inches up from the bottom of my foot.
So you go into this second phase of the story, right? You're bit. You're 2+ miles in, and you're on this solo. Like there is nobody else. And I don't know how long ago was this, Perry, because
It was 6 years ago in July.
So, cell phone. Like, tell me about There's just like 6 years ago, cell phones did exist.
Yep. I had a cell phone, but there's no service in that area.
All right.
It's just so isolated. There's no service.
So you were up in the back hills where there was no cell towers, and so that makes sense then.
Yeah.
All right.
And I had no inReach, any satellite communication device,
Sure.
the SOS button, which I now have.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But if I had, I was literally right next to the closed course road, so they could have driven the ambulance right up to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have saved me a lot of time and suffering.
Yeah. So like, tell us, like, walk us through your. I know you touched on this, but all right. So you get bit by this snake, and you're trying to get back to your vehicle.
Right.
Right. So like that's like a phase of the story, and then from there, there's the recovery. Right.
Yeah.
So like, walk us through that, getting back.
Okay.
How you got your rescue. And what all transpired in that, because I remember, I don't know if this was, I was reading, because Perry, he did have like an article, like a blog post on a bow hunting forum, and I read that story, and so you went into great
on a message board.
Yeah, you go into pretty good detail on that on the story. So like, tell us that part of the story about how you actually got through the rescue piece.
Okay, so. Like I said, I had my GPS, so I knew exactly how far I was. At one point, I was only about 2 or 3/10 of a mile from the actual trailhead, but the trail is not a very well-used trail, so it's not a very pronounced trail. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I got up off the trail. The trail started down a grade, and I just kind of kept going straight. And I remember seeing the trail like 30 feet below me on a steep grade. And my initial thought was, well, retrace your steps and then get back on the trail. And I remember thinking, no, I don't have time. I have to get to that trail. So I just started going downhill. And later, this was pretty ominous, because what I didn't realize was, at the time, my platelets are crashing, because not a lot of people know that up in the northern range of the timber rattlesnake range, the venom is more hemotoxic than neurotoxic. So it attacks the blood and the platelets. So your platelets are dropping, which means your ability to clot is going way down. So here I am going down this steep grade, and I remember just grabbing saplings to try to stay up on my feet.
Right.
And I got down to the trail, and I remember thinking to myself, how in the world did I stay up? Like, I don't know. And looking back on it, I know it was a good Lord. I mean, his hand was there keeping me up. So later, jump ahead, but later, when I finally got to the hospital, I was talking to the toxicologist, and he explained the reason I would be in the hospital so long is when they did the initial blood work at Altoona Hospital, my platelets were 7,000, and they consider low 150,000 or lower.
Unreal.
So I was at 7,000, and when I thought about that point where I was just like kamikaze downhill, I said, Doc, what would have happened if I would have fallen, if I would have bumped my head, if I would have cut myself? He said, that's it. He said,
liable to bleed out.
That level of platelet count, he's like, you would have bled internally. If you got a cut, you would have just bled to death. You would have bled out right on the trail there. And, of course, the hairs on my arm just like stood up. And,
Sure.
I was thanking God because that's the only reason, his hand was under me, holding me up.
No doubt.
I'm convinced.
For sure.
So I get out to the trailhead, and it just so happened there was a good Samaritan,
Turned out to be a good Samaritan.
driving into his cabin, because just past the trailhead there were like 5 or 6 cabins.
Mm-hmm.
So he stopped. I kind of waved him down. He stopped. I told him what happened. I said, I looked at my watch. It had been exactly an hour. So it took me exactly an hour to walk 2.1 miles.
Wow.
And that's about half speed for me if I'm walking on a treadmill to train.
Sure.
So he said, well, I don't get a cell signal here, but he said the cabin next door does. So he puts me in his vehicle and we drive to the cabin. They call 911. And then he told them, I'm driving him out to the Benezet store. Meet us at the Benezet store.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that. We get to the store. The one thing that we did wrong was he went into the store and got a bag of ice. And they say you don't want to do anything that's going to inhibit swelling, because swelling is actually a good thing. It gets the venom, pushes the venom out of that localized site where the bite
Right.
is.
Okay.
So that was the one thing that we did wrong. But everything else, they say now, don't try to put a tourniquet on it,
Mhm.
because you want that venom to move. Don't try to do the old X in the wound, between
Cut it open.
the fang marks, and try to suck the venom, because as soon as you get hit, that venom starts to circulate. So you're not going to get much of that venom out, if at all.
Wow.
So basically, it's the EMTs have a saying, time is tissue. So the quicker you get that first dose of anti-venom, the less tissue damage you're going to have, and the less, complications you're going to have. So, they say, don't mess around with the snake. Don't mess around with the bite. Just get the help as quick as you can.
That makes sense.
And that's where I die, because that thing is
It's gonna pay, right?
going to hell.
Well, I said I had my pistol on me, and they're like, why didn't you shoot the snake? And I'm like, I think I would have got so hyped up, and my heart rate would have been,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't have been thinking clearly. Like, that's one of the things that always amazes me, that, the good Lord was telling me, and within 5 seconds, I was hiking to get out of there.
Yeah, you were on a line from point A to point B to get out of there as quickly
And I
as you
don't,
could.
I don't know how, how do you do that? How do you keep your senses?
Yeah. Well, it's part of the grace of God that,
Oh, yeah.
you give him credit for. This really was a miracle that you got out of there at all. Because I remember reading your post about this, when you were saying, like, hey, my fingers are starting to tingle, my lips, I can't feel my leg. And I think you made the comment that even if you got to your truck, you wouldn't have been able to drive.
No, because it was deteriorating. I think I could have gotten another 2 or 3 tenths of a mile to
Mhm.
get to the hotel, but I couldn't drive. And so when we got out to the store, he drove me out to the store. I was just sitting on the steps of the store with the ice on my leg.
Right.
And just in the time, maybe 10, 15 minutes, we're waiting for the ambulance. He said, well, I know where they're coming from. He's like, let's meet them on the road and, get you
Trims
to
up the
them
time in half.
quicker.
Yeah.
So when I got up, I could barely move to get in the car. That's how much, it just, as the minutes went by, it was just deteriorating. So, and then then afterwards I thought, if this had been, a 5 or a 6 mile
Right.
hike, I wouldn't have made it.
There's all the what ifs that start going through your head after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounded like in the moment you were focused on what you needed to do, which was get the help. And so the ambulance gets you. You do make it back.
Well, here's another thing where God intervened. So, I can't remember the number of the road.
Okay.
But it's the main road going into Benazet. And if you know it, it's a back mountain road, and there's no pull-offs in either direction for miles.
Mm-hmm.
So we're heading out towards where the ambulance is coming from, and right where we meet, there's a pull-off on the side of the road. So the ambulance actually passes us, and we're waving our arms trying to flag it down. And luckily there was a volunteer fireman trailing behind in a pickup. So he saw us. So he radioed the ambulance to turn around. And then we just pulled off onto this pull off.
Uh-huh.
And the ambulance came back, and, they start an IV, start getting my medical information and all that. And in the meantime, the helicopter is on its way right to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, another place where God just, everything just lined up.
Unreal.
Yeah, I'm thinking just how I am. I work very much off my GPS. So, I don't know, paramedics nowadays, I'm sure they, have a little bit of awareness of their area, but, like you're the cabin, the Good Samaritan guy, the ambulance is coming this way, but what if they came from a different way or different route? Those minutes count, as you said. So, everything just seemed to have fallen into place, and everything seemed to, worked out for you. So, okay, they get to you, they get your information. I'm sure they maybe administer maybe the anti-venom at this point, or that wasn't until the hospital at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they actually, another thing I didn't know is they have to mix the anti-venom, and they take into account 3 different factors. 1 is your body size.
Sure.
2 is the time of year, because the toxicity of the venom varies.
It's different potency.
And of course, I got bit right at the peak of toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is how much venom you actually receive. So they do the blood work when you get to the hospital, and then they apparently this is like the new protocol that they use. Instead of just having one standard
Makes sense.
dose of anti-venom, they kind of tailor it to the situation.
Okay.
So I'm in the ambulance, and then they say, once they got me kind of stabilized and we're just waiting for the helicopter to land, they say, have you called your family?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, if I could have called, I would have called
don't tell
you
mom.
first.
Don't tell mom, right?
So then, then I'm thinking, well, what do I tell them?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I just got bit by a rattlesnake. I'm at the ambulance waiting for a helicopter to the hospital. I think I'm going to make it, but I'm not quite sure.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, no. Like, get me to the hospital, get me stabilized, get me the first dose of anti-venom. Then I have something to tell them.
Yeah. No, I understand that. You don't want to make them worry.
My wife and family, like, forget it. That would have put them over the edge.
Yep.
Were they glad that you took that route, or did they want to know right away? Because I feel like it's a tricky slope.
You can't win that conversation.
In hindsight, they were glad.
Yeah.
But as it was when I finally did call late that night from Altoona Hospital, I'll never forget. My wife told me days later. She said my 13-year-old daughter was standing at the top of her steps and crying, is my daddy going to die? Is my daddy going to die?
Yeah.
So it was hard enough,
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we probably, as guys, we don't talk about this as men, but like the weight that we carry to like shoulder and shield our families from emotional distraught, or we just do what we can to make life good, comfortable. Life's not always comfortable, but we want to protect
Right.
and shield our families from having to go through emotions.
I just wanted to give them something positive.
Right, exactly.
to hang on to.
I think that's the approach that males take. We want to sort of soften the blow if there's going to be a blow, or we want to give them the positive report so that they don't have to sit there and think about it or stress over it or whatever. But
Well, you give the information that's kind of pertinent, and if there's nothing they can do, I was in a accident. It's actually my work van had rained in a while, rain come down around this turn. The farmer had just mowed grass out onto the road. And as I was coming around the turn, like it turned into a sprint car. It's going, and it's a crazy story, but I ended up rolling and then kind of flipping to where it's van straight up and down. I thought I was going to stay there, and then so I get out, went, talked to the farmer, called the police, called my boss. When I called Nikki to come get me up, I was like, hey, van kind of off the road. I can't drive. I'm going to need to get a ride. So she's like, okay. So her and Duck come, and I see him pulling in, and she's just kind of wide-eyed looking at the van.
seeing the vehicle.
She said, you didn't tell, I told you all that you needed to know.
Right.
Like I flipped the van. How would that have helped at that time?
Yeah.
Like you kind of say what you need to say.
Yeah, it's a good
And
point.
it doesn't change anything.
Just say
So,
enough.
yeah, yep, to let you know what's going on. This is what I need. Everything's good. And in a situation like that, it's all unknown.
Everything's amplified.
It's
Yeah.
unknown. You don't know what to say. You don't know what's coming next.
So talk us through the recovery stage of this, right?
Okay.
Because that was, like you said, many months, or
Oh yeah.
I mean, like so.
Yeah. Well,
Answer this. I'll let you get into it.
I'll go back to the first hospital because they flew me from Altoona when they did the blood work. The lead toxicologist was at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to oversee everything from Pittsburgh
Remotely.
And when they did my blood work and found out how much venom I received, he wasn't comfortable with me being in Altoona and them being in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So he said, we're gonna give you the first dose of antivenom, and then we're gonna fly you to Pittsburgh because I want to see you.
Yeah.
So they gave me, it took like 90 minutes to mix up the antivenom. So
Really.
the whole time I'm lying on a gurney in Altoona, and the pain, they always say snake bites are painful. Rattlesnake bites are painful. Well, you can't imagine the level of pain. I was a high school and college athlete, and I put up with a lot of pain. I had no idea what I was in for. When I first got to the hospital, I'm lying on the gurney, and they gave me Dilaudid and oxycodone. And once they started giving me that, it was every 2 hours. They would give me Dilaudid, and then 2 hours later, they'd give me oxycodone. 2 hours after that, Dilaudid. So each one was on a 4-hour
Sure.
schedule. I didn't even feel it until I got that first dose of antivenom. So I was like,
So you could tell that antivenom when you could feel when you got that. It just made a difference.
Well, I went from like a 13 to a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Right.
So initially when I was lying there, I kept apologizing because I was like screaming and yelling. And, if I had a bullet or a wooden dowel rod, it would have been biting on that because it was just excruciating. So once I got that first dose of antivenom, at least it was like tolerable and I could talk, and it wasn't like I mean, I was literally lying there just,
Yeah.
Just unbelievable pain.
Just trying to survive, really.
Yeah.
Were you able to connect at all with the time that it's been since with anybody that experienced something similar to, see if they had a similar experience?
I've run across a couple people that had different experiences. One actually was worse than mine because he was in North Carolina. So, and it was longer. He didn't get the anti-venom as quick as I did.
Mm-hmm.
So, and down there, it's neurotoxic. So it attacks the heart and the lungs. So he had a lot of respiratory issues, a lot of heart issues. He was actually in a coma for like 3 or 4 days. And it ended up attacking his digestive system and really messing up his digestive system. But, I haven't talked to anybody that from this area that had that big of a lag time between getting bit and getting the first round of anti-venom.
How long was that?
So it was almost 5 hours. And the toxicologist told me that usually 6 hours is the magic window. So if you get the first dose before 6 hours, you're probably going to live and you're probably not going to have like significant permanent tissue damage. So you're probably not going to have an amputation or anything like that. But I think because of the amount of venom I got, they ended up over the course of 4 days, I got 30 vials of anti-venom. And they tell me the average treatment is 12 to 15 vials. So I got like over double.
Yeah.
Over double.
What's that stuff called, Savannah?
Don't want to know.
Yeah. So the drug company wanted $420,000 for that 30 vials of anti-venom. My insurance company negotiated them down to $219,000. And that's just for the treatment. That doesn't count hospital stay.
Yeah, any of the other bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely the pharmaceutical market, is a money-making market to be in, I guess.
Yeah. It's when you need that anti-venom.
There's no, you gotta let me think about this, no? Get it in me. Get it into my system.
Yeah.
So I know that you attribute, really the recovery and just getting through this ordeal, you attribute it to God looking down on you and the grace of God on your life. What was that? Walk me through your mental, what was going through your mind and how were you processing this? Like once you got that initial stage, you got to the point where you're like, okay, I am going to live. There's going to be a little bit of a journey here. And then I guess you walked in here pretty good. Do you have any permanent reciduals or you have some?
I do, but it's more nuisance than anything.
Yeah. You just,
I've got the listeners won't be able to see it, but I've got a mass of scar tissue.
Right.
This is where I got bit. And so I had to elevate my leg at a 45-degree angle for weeks.
Yeah.
And I can show you pictures, but basically my calf blew up to the size of my thigh.
Unreal. And
the whole thing over the course of 7 or 8 days turned different colors. It looked like a huge burn. Is what it looked like. And so I had to keep my leg elevated at a 45-degree angle to drain all the necrotic tissue out of the lower leg.
Yeah.
So I was in the hospital for 9 days, and again, that was because of my platelets. It wasn't necessarily because of my leg. So in Altoona, they did the initial blood work, I was 7,000 platelets. It took 9 days to get back up to 50,000. And that's why
It's still way low.
yeah. And, they had to be careful. Like, they wouldn't let me shave. They wouldn't let me use a shaver.
Yep.
And they were taking my blood every 6 hours, checking the platelet count. And, basically that's, that determined, when they could safely, release me from the hospital. But for, basically for like 22 hours a day, I had my leg elevated on like 8 pillows. And, the toxicologist said, the sooner you start moving and the more you start moving, the better the outcome's going to be. So like the second day, I would, first thing I did was just, take the pillows out and put my leg down on the bed. And as soon as my leg would go level, it felt like it was going to explode.
Yep.
So I went from, on the painkillers, I was at like a 9 out of 10. And it's just like, it's not only the magnitude of the pain, but the duration of that magnitude. Like staying at a 9 out of 10 on the pain scale for 9 days.
It's no relief.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like mind numbing, draining pain. Like, so I work at a VA hospital and I work with patients every day. And I said, I have a new appreciation for people that have like chronic pain or, orthopedic injuries that cause pain, arthritis. Like, I have a new appreciation now.
Yeah. All right. So let me shift this conversation this direction, guys. What would you have done, Justin? Like you said, like you would have shot that thing.
I hate snakes. I will chop a rubber snake in half. I love nature, and I think, God made all these things. Snakes are the devil, and there's zero use for them. Argue with anybody. I honestly don't know that you said it was God, and I believe that, and it would take all of God to have my head be in the right place, because I don't remember a traumatic experience. I don't remember, I don't know why, I just know that they creep me out. I don't care anything for them. When Nikki and I got married, we went up, actually, the Poconos, and stayed at a place up there, and we went to some kind of zoo thing, and they had like an indoor reptile, whatever.
Yeah.
And we went in, and I was like, I'm gonna go in, and I don't know, like it wasn't a face your fear kind of thing, but I was like, I can do this. I can.
Sure.
And like they're on the other side of glass. I couldn't take it. I'm like, man, they just creep me out, man. And so I don't think there's a chance. Like if I got bit and there's a chance I'm going to die, you're dying first, and I'm going to watch it happen.
Right.
And I know it's illegal, to kill these things or whatever, but I don't know who hands those tickets out. Start filling the paperwork out, because this is happening right now. Like, so I just don't, it would take every bit of God. I would like to think that it would kind of enter your mind, hey, you got to keep your heart rate down, but I don't know how that's possible. That's like you falling into a lake and saying, hey, you got to stay dry. You can't be wet. Well,
I'm wet.
I don't know how you don't get elevated like that. Like the whole thing is it's just God thing after God thing after God thing after God thing. I mean,
I look back on it now and I tell people, like, if you would have told me 2 days before that happened, what was going to happen, I'd say, I'm a dead man. Like, how do you walk 2 miles on a snake bit leg? Like, how do you do that?
So I have 2 questions. What I really want to know is, what was Mom's response when she...
Actually, I was amazed. Like, she was just so glad I was alive.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I never got the "I told you so."
Good.
Like,
She's probably still waiting for it.
but I told her, when I finally saw her, I said, Mom, I will never doubt a thing you say ever again.
Yeah.
But you changed your plans, right? Like you were going to do like a deeper, longer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was going to do a 3-day instead of overnight.
Yeah, you didn't. Mom said, "Hey, don't drink any of that soda. It's too close to bedtime." And you were like, "Just a shot, just a sip, And I mean, that very well could have been the different. You're 4 miles deep.
Yeah,
It's a totally different story.
it could have been the difference.
So
my other thought, Perry, is, how did this affect your outlook on the outdoors now? So like we always talk, one of the things that Brady and I talk about a lot are lessons learned, right? So there's always a takeaway. And, for a story like this, on a podcast like this, we want to like talk and discuss about like what are the takeaways. But personally for you, how did this affect your outlook on, continuing to get outdoors and just being life in general? I mean, really, like there's traumatic events can change your life for the better, for the worse, but they shift the way you think about things. So
the first thing, once I got home, my family's, I'm thinking, okay, it's now the beginning of August and we do our, I'm a member of the United Bow Hunters and we have a early season hunt down in WMU 5C down near Kutztown every year. And I'm part of that. I'm part of the planning and the committee. So I'm thinking, that's coming up. Like, how am I going to hunt?
Right.
And,
Right.
At the time I'm thinking, I'm probably not going to be able to get up in a tree. I can't use a climber. Like I can barely walk because I had to use a walker for 2 weeks. And then it was 10 days on a single crutch. And then it was weeks with a cane just to get around. And I had exactly 6 weeks of sick leave from my job. And if I had had more, I probably would have stayed out longer. But I had 6 weeks. So it's like, I got to get back to work in 6 weeks. So, and I ambulate patients. And so I knew they were not going to let me ambulate patients if I have a cane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I was good at that point. I could maneuver and, I was fairly solid on my feet, but, but I'm like, can I really hunt? I mean, I'm going to need somebody to drag a deer if I shoot one.
I need somebody to help drag a deer and I'm quote unquote healthy.
Yeah. So my buddies were great. They're like, look, they also have a disabled hunter program.
Yeah.
So they had a crossbow and they're like, worst comes to worst, we drive you out into the field, we set up a blind for you and use a crossbow. But being a diehard compound shooter, I'm like, I don't want to use the crossbow.
I get it. Yeah, we've had that conversation.
Yeah. So like mid-August, I got my bow out and I tried to pull it and I couldn't pull it. I couldn't get that back to full draw. And what I didn't realize was I had lost about 25 pounds in the almost 2 weeks I was in the hospital.
Right. Yeah.
And that venom, apparently it just kills your appetite. Cause like the food was good. I was like, I just couldn't eat. Like I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And so, I'm thinking, what do I do now? Like, I gotta start, rehabbing to the point where I can turn my bow down a little bit, but I can only go so far. So
sure, yeah.
Over the course of a couple weeks, then I regained enough strength that I could finally, pull the bow, and I ended up, I participated that year in the hunt, and I remember the first morning, about a week or 10 days before the hunt, I actually got my climber out, and it was hard to keep the feet in the straps and to work it, but I could get up like 10 or 12 feet. So, and it was shaky, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I had a full harness.
It was
on,
work,
so I was
though.
like,
Yeah.
but that's what I wanted to do. That was my goal.
Made it work for you.
Yeah. So I was able to do that, and went out, and the first morning the sunrise came up, and I just sat there, and it just hit me like, dude, you're alive. You're watching a beautiful sunrise that the good Lord has given you. And like, I just started bawling like a baby. Like,
Yeah.
the tears were just, I was just so happy to be alive. And like
It's
you
like one of
said,
those moments. You're like,
you know, you know, they say that happens when you go through a life-changing event. And yeah, it happens.
yeah. And so it sounds like you had that moment where like it clicked.
Yeah.
And it's almost like
A light bulb goes off.
yeah, like a realization of the situation. But that's incredible. So Brady, if you're in that situation, like what part of this story is the most like compelling thing to you? Like what sticks out if you were to put yourself in Perry's shoes?
I think just talking here, like all the cards in the deck came to line just to work out the situation. Like I'm thinking, what if it happens to me? I don't know if I'd quite be like Justin. I might try to, kick it or something.
I hope not, because I want you to live.
Yeah, but in my head, I think there would be a time crunch. But it's like those dreams when you got to run away from the monster or whatnot. You just can't get your footing. You keep falling down. Like you're not moving. You're stuck in mud. Like I'd be trying to be processing every single step that I got to be doing, and drop my keys, and I don't know. I just number one, I would think even though if it happened to my neck of the woods, like all right, where's the quickest route? How am I getting here? But if I'm in a area of timber that I'm not familiar with, I'd want to use my phone to navigate. Well, you don't have service, so what's next? So, yeah, like I don't know. I don't think it would have worked out in my favor, but it just, it's a attestation that you need to take some more steps and just be a little bit more prepared than what you are.
Yeah, so I think like one of the takeaways really is being prepared.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, Perry, like as you approach hiking and hunting and having an outdoor lifestyle, like how do you approach it differently? Like what can we learn? Like,
Well,
what are the lessons learned here?
the first thing I did was I went out and bought a pair of snake boots.
I bet, yeah.
So
Snakes.
actually, snake-proof boots. Yeah. And I have like 4 pair now.
Yeah.
So I have, 2 pair of rubber boots, a pair of hunting boots, and I have the snake gaiters.
Yeah.
But and that was one of the ironies of the whole thing. I had actually thought about buying snake boots before I went out there, and I said, you know what? I'm only out there like once or twice a year. Like I'm a bow hunter. Like I can see a deer's head move at 100 yards through the brush.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what still gets me. Like I just can't fathom how it was right there and I never saw it.
So locally here, I mean, we do have rattlers, but it's more copperhead in this area, and like the places that we hunt, we're going to come across copperhead, and they do not really reveal themselves. They say like there's kind of like a smell, like the cucumbery smell.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
But you got to have an attuned sense of smell, which I don't.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it's different, but you got taking those precautions, thinking ahead, and not taking for granted that hey, I'm walking through the woods, but this is someone else's habitat.
Well, my family, their reaction when I was recovering, and I said, I got to get better because we have this hunt coming up, and they're like, you actually want to go back in the woods?
Yeah.
Like you're nuts. And I'm thinking, like that's part of me. That's who I am. If I can't get out in the woods, like you may as well.
Yeah. I think we all understand that.
Send me to the old folks home or something. Like that's what I live for.
So I worked construction growing up. My dad, my brother run a construction business, and there was this time, I don't know, I was probably a teenager or whatever, but we'd work off of ladders or we'd work off of scaffolding, depending on the situation. We'd be on roofs. And I remember one time I stepped on a board and the board wasn't solid or whatever, lost my balance, and I fell off of like $3 of scaffolding. So I was like 12, 15 feet in the air, and I fell. And I remember my dad telling me, like, all right, I wasn't hurt. And him, basically saying, like, you got to get back on the horse, because the longer you take before climbing back up to a height, getting into heights again, the more your head, it's going to get between your ears, And so I was fortunate I didn't hurt myself, and I just got back up and I went right back to work. But if you take that period of time and you didn't get back out there, that could have messed with your psyche even. So sometimes you just got to get back on it and get back into it. And I think that us four in this room, or anybody that is probably going to listen to this, like our audience, we all understand, like, if you're going to tell me I can't go outside and I can't get out into nature anymore, you might as well just like do away with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say here, we're talking precautions, knowing that we're coming to this conversation about the snake bite. I was at the cabin last weekend, and where our cabin is towards the top, it's in Bedford County, so southwest PA, but I'm told there's rattlers up there, but I've yet to see one up there. But, I just kind of keep aware of my surroundings, especially in the summer. But towards the peak, it's really rocky. It's like they used to do the mining out there, so it's a hard time with your footing. But I was walking towards the peak, and I see, just whether it was dew or something, is in a little cove under the rocks. And I was like, I wonder if that's a snake. But in hindsight, I was like thinking of coming here. So at first I was going to get my phone and really stick it down in there. I'm like, that's not worth it. And then I was like, well, let me make you get a stick and like dance around there. And I'm like, well, if it is a snake, do I really want to, torque it off? So I was just like, it might be a snake, it might not be, but I'm going to let it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. When in doubt, let it be. So takeaways: the importance of staying calm in a crisis.
Yeah.
Extremely important. Lessons on
Wear snake boots if you're going to be
being prepared.
Poisonous, copperheads, rattlesnakes. The other thing is, I urge everybody, if you're going to be, especially if you're going to be in an area where there's no cell coverage, get an inReach.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the second thing I bought, was the inReach. And I just have the safety plan, but I know if I'm in an area where there's no cell coverage, and so now I take it hunting, fishing, if I'm ice fishing, backpacking, if I'm outdoors doing something, I have my inReach like clipped to me somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's on.
And I think another thing is you never want to stop going out and doing stuff on your own, but life's better with a hunting buddy, So anytime you can like double up, or you got somebody. I know you said like your guys knew where you were going to be, and
You were supposed to have somebody with you though.
One of my high school buddies
and it
was
backed out
supposed to go with me, and something came up, and they couldn't do it. So he felt really bad.
I bet he did.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know what? It's probably better that you weren't there, because there's nothing you could do. What are you going to do? Carry me out?
Right.
I take it he wasn't the one that got you the snake.
No. But the first, like I said, the first thing I did was get the snake boots, and it's not only was it for precaution, but it was so traumatic that like I would be walking in my yard and I would see a stick that looked like
everything's a snake.
I would just freeze and then I would realize, it's only a stick.
Mm-hmm. So
I bet you for the first couple weeks, I was mowing grass in my snake boots.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a rattlesnake in my yard, and then during the hunt, we're hunting early season. There's a lot of ferns. There's weeds.
And that tall grass.
See what's on the ground. I said, I had to wear those snake boots or I would have been a nervous wreck, just walking through there.
Well, once you go through something like that, it's like, that's enough. I'm not going to go through that again.
Never again.
Yeah.
If I can help it.
Well, I guess let's wrap up the conversation. But so your family and the support you got from your family, why don't you just walk us through that? Obviously, they're glad that you were safe, but there was a road to recovery, and I'm sure that your family played a big role in that.
Yeah, it was a long road. Back and forth to the doctor. Before I went back to work, and basically just sitting in a lazy boy. Watching TV.
Limited on what you could do, like, physically.
Yeah, because for the first, I bet it was 4 weeks until I could sit with my leg down. Like I said, I had to keep it elevated, and that was relief when it was elevated.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I would put it down, I would get that pain, and the pain lasted it was almost a year and a half until I got to the point where it wasn't 24/7 pain. It was almost a solid year and a half. And the doctors kept telling me, oh, in a year you'll be fine. You'll be back to normal. Mm-hmm. And at 6 months, I'm like, no,
this is not normal.
No way. And I think it was just the fact that they had never seen anybody that took so long to get that first dose and had that much anti-venom or that much venom, from the snake. So, and the toxicologist, when he saw the width of the fang marks, he's like, that's a big one.
Now, I think you told me this, that you, post this ordeal, you learned a lot about snakes.
Oh, yeah. Just sitting in your lazy boy for, 10 hours a day, I start getting on the internet and, researching things and, found out that timber rattlers are notorious for not rattling.
Mm-hmm.
All the side effects, of, not only the venom, but the anti-venom. I actually had a little pocket of venom after I had already gone through all the treatments, all the vials of anti-venom. I think it was the sixth day. I went from a 9, back to a 13 on the pain scale, and I knew something wasn't right. And here, the toxicologist said I must have had a pocket of venom just hiding in the tissue there. Mm. And that just never was neutralized by the anti-venom. And it came out that day after I had walked, done my therapy. So, it was, the toxicologist said, we could start you back on the anti-venom, but then it would just push
just going to reset your time.
It would add to the number of days I had to be in the hospital. And, he thought that was it probably wouldn't have helped that much. So he's like, they gave me more pain medication and basically I just, toughed it out. But, there was a case where, it didn't go by the book,
Well, you were a rare case, I think, in your story, with your platelets getting to where they were, and
it was just like a perfect.
You just surviving those is a miracle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And afterwards, I was telling Justin, every time that my daughter was a swimmer, and she had this happened the summer before she went into high school. And so she and her teammates were state qualifiers in swimming. So every time I would go to a meet and watch her swim, it would just hit me like how blessed I was just to be seeing that, because I could very well have missed that whole, her whole
For sure.
high school career.
Yeah, for sure. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it just kind of shows at a moment notice, like your life can change, especially in the outdoors to, tie into what we represent. So whether you're, going on a hike or, if you're just out by yourself hunting, at a moment's notice, you could fall out a tree, you could twist your ankle, a snake could bite you. So just taking all those precautionary steps to be prepared, have that mental route in your head of the steps you're going to take if it does happen at a moment's notice. But, this life we live is a magic life. Count your blessings. There's a lot to be appreciative of, and, live every day like it's your last, and just absorb each and every moment.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, Justin, thanks for putting this together, man. I appreciate you, sort of connecting us and getting Perry down here. I think you were the draw to some degree to get him down here. It's always good to come hang out with a buddy. You guys are out, campfiring and shooting bows. Yes, last night. And
I know. I got a handful of people that are excited that this segment was out.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. We've been texting for at least a month, 2 months, talking about this, waiting for the right date to get it set up and everything. And like I said, I had read the story when you had sent me your post and your discussion. And we were really, really thankful that you took the time out of your time, because you traveled to come here.
Yeah.
And, what I would just say to our listeners is, we just want to make sure, you take Perry's story to heart. Whether you're out hunting, hiking, like Brady was just saying, like preparedness is a key. You never know, like something can change in a moment. And we just don't want to take anything for granted, even our day-to-day life. You said watching your daughter grow up through high school.
Yeah.
Don't take it for granted. Live every day like it's your last. We always say get outdoors, do something. Nature is our playground. We want to thank you, Perry, for coming on and sharing your story. And yeah, man, I hope this really, inspires people, because this is like a real life. It could be any of us, but we love the outdoors. And so we're going to continue to hike and to camp and to hunt and do those things. And Justin, again, hat tip to you for making this happen and putting it all together. So
yeah. I appreciate this opportunity to get the story out, because, a lot of times, and I've seen stories on the news, and, a lot of times they don't give the magnitude it deserves. It's usually a wildlife biologist that loves snakes and says, oh yeah, if you get bit, it's like getting struck by lightning. It's so rare. And when it happens, you just go to the hospital. They give you some anti-venom, and everything's great. But I know, that
when you live through it, it's a different ordeal, and I think, for the four of us and, what we stand for, it is a family program, but, we are believers in the Creator and the Almighty. And, we recognize His grace on us every single day. And, that's one of the things that I really enjoyed whenever we were connected was, you're using this story to give glory to God. And
definitely.
We recognize that, and we want to be a platform for people to do that sort of thing. So, just recognizing where our blessings come from, for sure.
Amen.
Well, listen, guys, what I'll do is I'll put in the description of the podcast, I will put the forum that you posted, your bow site forum. I'll put that link so people can go and read the full story. And as always, you can always find us on YouTube at Mentor Outdoors. You can find Tracks and Tackle as well, and find us on any of your social pages. We hat tip to Interstate Garage Doors for sponsoring the show and sort of running with us this year. And so if you need a garage door service replacement, or Justin's he's your guy. He'll sell it to you for sure. He's been pretty quiet this episode, but he's got the ability to talk to you, and he's a salesman. So, but hat tip to you guys. Appreciate all that you do and for the podcast. So, To our listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, tell a friend, and as always, we want you to just stay wild.